All right, so today is chapter 6, the final chapter of The World Needs a Father. So just a bit of a recap. This is a teaching, a foundation teaching for the family mountain. So if you remember all the 14 mountains from a King Solomon Kingdom incubator, the family mountain is one of them, and The World Needs a Father is our standard for fatherhood, the way we implement, the way we execute, the way we, it embraces all of our core values for fathering. And that includes, if you'll remember, we are to be, God has instructed us to be prepared to bring in hundreds or thousands even of children in each location. So it's not just parenting your own families, it's parenting these children that are to come into our kingdoms. So this is one of our foundational teachings. All right. So, and just a reminder, on Mondays, it will be opened up more and more and more. So the Monday equipping or training time really should be on everybody's teams. So let's say like Frehiwat for you, for Ethiopia, like your school director, like all your leaders, your teachers and whatever, can be participating in the training, because this way, or in anybody who is either hasn't even started their building their kingdom yet, bring your leadership team to the training on Mondays, because it starts the equipping of the saints, right? And building the culture that you want to build in your kingdom. All right. So whether you started or not, bring at least your leadership team into training. All right. And then from here, so what we're doing on these videos is just delivering, let's see, kind of the core teaching, but it's meant for you to take the teaching and discuss in small groups within your leadership team in your kingdom, and discuss how are we going to implement it? What are we going to change? You know, what are the steps we're going to take to implement this? All right. Right. Okay. And just an FYI, so starting next week, we're going to start teaching on the government mountain. So that is, how do you govern? How do you run a King Solomon Kingdom incubator? So we'll be doing that. I'm not sure how many weeks we'll be in that before we move on to the next segment. But the next segment will be on the government mountain. So that will be all about God's way of a kingdom government. God's way. So in other words, just a few little trailers, I guess you could say, is that there's no democracy in God's kingdom. God appoints a king or a queen or a leader for a kingdom. And we'll discuss other things like that. What are the core values? Basically, how did King Solomon run his kingdom? All right. So that will be starting next week. And of course, today is chapter 6, the final chapter of The World Needs a Father. All right. So, okay, let me pull up the PowerPoint. All right. So we've already covered in other chapters that a father brings authority to the family. Some of the roles of the father. The father establishes authority. He establishes identity. And today we're going to talk about a father affirms potential. It's pretty self-explanatory. Let's just keep pressing on. All right, so the things we're going to talk about, 5 aspects or ways that a father is the one who validates potential, right? So the father's role as opposed to the mother's role. So the first one is the importance of affirmation. So you'll know children are always saying, look, Dad, look at me, watch me, you know, and they're riding a bicycle without training wheels for the first time, or they're, you know, on the monkey bars or the playground, scaling a wall or something like that, or they're skating or swimming or something. They want daddy to look, because that gives them an affirmation. So what is the importance of that? The second one is affirm according to the needs of the season. We'll go into some detail. We're going to talk about affirm each child according to their unique calling, their unique gifts, how God has wired them, what is their destiny. All right. And fourth, affirm, of course, their gender identity, which we need today. And fifth, we're going to a father affirms the rite of passage. So these are the 5 aspects or ways a father affirms identity in a child. All right. So scriptures, this is going to be based on is John 14:12. Anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing. He will do even greater things than these. All right. So that's Jesus talking. The way a father should approach fatherhood is that and even a mother as well, that our shoulders are their platform to launch even further and do greater things than us. All right. And John 20:21 is, as the Father has sent me, I am sending you. Right. And that's the approach of a father. The God has sent, our dads, our earthly dads, and then our dads send the children. Right. All right. And 2 Corinthians 5:20, we are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. This is the father's stance, right? Because remember in chapter 1, we talked about the father represents God on the earth and the mom represents the body, right? And so it's like a role play, as it says, moms submit to dads, or wives submit to your husbands, as if submitting to God, right? So it's like a role play right in front of the kids. So the kids learn how to submit to God. And then dads, of course, are to love their wives like Christ loves the church, right? To sacrifice, to serve as a servant leader. And so we role play that in front of our children, and of course, neighbors and friends and all that sort of thing. All right. And then finally, 2 Corinthians 6:1, as God's fellow workers, we urge you. And then it continues on. But basically, dads are representing they're the ambassadors of Christ, of God, and they're also the fellow workers of God. All right.
Say, I am strong.
I am strong.
Say, I am smart.
I am smart.
I work hard.
I work hard.
I am beautiful.
I am beautiful.
I am respectful.
I am respectful.
Yeah. Say, I'm not better than anyone.
I'm not better than anyone.
Nobody's better than me.
No one's better than me.
I am amazing.
I am amazing.
I am great.
I am great.
What's your name?
Aaliyah Austin.
If you fall,
I get back up.
what are you?
I'm blessed.
Yes. Say, thank you, God.
Thank you, God,
For making me
for making me
the greatest.
the greatest.
There's nobody
There's nobody
better
better
than me.
than me.
All right, you 5. Let me get
That was precious.
Isn't it? Yeah. It's I mean, that just touches your heart. And I want to say, just a reminder as we work through, is to approach from the teaching, first of all, as reflecting on how we were parented, right? So there's healing involved, and as we recognize how we weren't necessarily parented the way God intended, and kind of coming to some sort of reconciliation with that and forgiving our fathers. but then also how we are parenting our children, right? So it's a double way, two different ways of looking at the teaching. But then, I just want to remind everyone, there's no condemnation for those in Jesus Christ. It's not about condemnation. It's about healing, and it's about, what do I do now? What do I do next? Right? And we're all growing. We're all growing. All right.
I am smart. I am blessed. I can do anything. I am smart. I can do anything. I am smart. I am blessed. I can do anything.
Yeah. That's just, and I love how he's just gripping that banana like there's no tomorrow. This kid is on a mission and so confident, heading off to school, knowing who he is in Christ. That exemplifies the children we want to raise, right? That's it right there. Those are the children that we will raise in our King Solomon Kingdom incubators, just like that. All right. So affirming positive behavior has a much stronger developmental, empowering effect than correcting negative behavior. All right. So what that means, let's see here. If I were to say this, if I were to say, look, don't think about an elephant. Guys, do not think about an elephant. Do not think about a tall, gray, big animal with a trunk, that big gray elephant. Don't think about it, right? Well, what's the first thing you think about is an elephant, right? you visualize an elephant, right? So what's that?
I think of a mouse.
A mouse. Okay, there you go. So when you say something like, don't put your laundry on the floor, right? The image created in the mind is laundry on the floor. So it actually reinforces negative behavior when you focus on the negative behavior, right? But what it also does is it doesn't provide instruction on what to do, right? So corrective behavior is more, by focusing on the bad behavior, is more, it's always reinforcing. They need to be taught what to do, right? And sometimes as parents, we assume that they know what to do, right? But really, what would be a better correction would be, can you put your laundry into the laundry hamper or the laundry basket or whatever it's called in your country, right? Can you put the laundry, remember to put the laundry in the laundry hamper. And another thing, another comment is we want to avoid corrective behavior that goes like this. I like it when you put your dishes in the dishwasher, right? That makes it, it's probably a step better than harping on the negative behavior, but that makes it about pleasing you, right? So I like it when you put your dishes in the dishwasher. That makes it about, I want you to please me. I like it when, right? And we don't want it to be about them pleasing us, right? Then they grow up to be people pleasers, right? But we could say it like this. You show so much responsibility when you put the dishes in the dishwasher, right? So now it's saying, it's building them up. It's like, oh, putting my dishes in the dishwasher means I'm responsible, right? And so that would be, so there's a better and best way, and let's always strive for the best. So try to avoid things like I like it when you, or I love it when you, because that's about people pleasing. And that's about, it's also, that's all teaches external influence when we want to promote internal influence, which we covered on our last week. Internal influence is much stronger, self-conviction, as opposed to trying to please other people. All right. So let's move to the next one. All right. So remember we had the list of five ways of building affirmation, or sorry, affirming potential is okay, let's just talk about the importance of affirmation. So here we are. Affirmations include those for self-confidence, where that was wrong, where the child can develop inner strength, knowing that he or she is valuable and unique, which is just what I mentioned. So an inner value system, an inner drive, an inner motivation to want to grow, to be more like God, to have good character, right? So we want to promote an inner strength, right? And a child, so they should feel smart, creative, beautiful, good at reading, good at learning, good at whatever their skill set is, arts, sports, whatever they're interested in. They should feel confident and good about it, but again, from an internal perspective, as opposed to pleasing others. All right, so types of affirmation. So, and we're going to refer back to these, but spiritual affirmations. Okay, so that's good at making a child feel full of love, unique, perfect in the way they are, no matter their size, build, color, height, hair type. They feel forgiving, thankful, grateful, and content. So how can we, and I'll open it for ideas, how can a dad promote spiritual affirmation or affirm identity spiritually? So I've got one here is just spending the time in Bible study, right? As a family, give spiritual affirmation because you're spending time with them in their spiritual development, as opposed to kind of handing it off to the Sunday school teacher, right? Or the youth group leader. Is the dad is actually participating in it with the children. And so that helps affirm their spiritual identity by doing a Bible study at home. Another, to affirm their emotional identity. So that imparts feelings of being loved, being beautiful, being happy. So ways of building, affirming their emotional identity is give them permission to cry, right? And that means just holding them when they're crying, right? If they're that kind, some of them need space, but just allowing them to cry and sitting with them while they're crying, handing them a tissue, and just generally affirming their emotions as relevant and important. And if you remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we did emotional literacy, emotional IQ. And we talked about all kinds of ways of affirming them emotionally. So it means not walking away when they're upset or crying or confused or whatever, but means being with them. That affirms their emotional identity. All right. Affirming their identity socially. So that helps them create they become friendly children. They're good listeners. They have good self-expression qualities and compassion. They know how to be friends. They know how to have good friends. They know how to discern good friends and discern ones not to be friends with. So you could do that verbally. You can say, I can see that your friend Susie was very encouraged when you showed her compassion by listening, right? So just these verbal affirmations. Encourage their friend to bring their friends to your house to spend time, right? So then you're interacting with their friends, modeling good interactions with their friends. And welcoming their friends and even their friends' families over for family meals, and getting to know their friends. That's affirming their social identity, right? By being involved with their friends. All right. Okay, affirming their physical identity, right? so that's all about where are we at? Yeah, self-image. So it means, as opposed to reserving compliments for when they're all dressed up and they look good, or they finished exercising, we want to make sure we're promoting their physical identity just as they are, right? It could be the family exercising together to promote good fitness and active lifestyles. Then you work out with them, right? Or go, depending on what country you're in, but going skiing together as a family, going swimming together as a family. Again, being involved with their physical development affirms their physical identity. All right. Okay, 1 minute praising. We also do what are called, what do we call that? We call it admire to inspire. So I'll just share, this is what we do at our sport academies with Fire Athletics International. So we would start every practice with admire to inspire. Right. So let's just pretend, I'll just do it. We'll just role play it right here and you'll see what I mean. So let's just, because I know how to do it, pretend I'm the coach, right? And, so Darren, Frehiwat, and Honest, if, you guys have shown up for practice, right? So before we start, as the coach, I sit down in a chair so that I'm eye level with the athletes. And again, remember, most of the athletes that we've trained are usually younger, so not taller than me. So I sit down in a chair or I kneel down, so I'm at their eye level when they come up. So I call them up one at a time. And, I would say, Honest. So Honest comes up to the front of, or to where I'm, am on the field, in the gym, in the clubhouse or whatever. And I just say, Honest, I am so glad you're on my team. I am so excited. I think you have so much ability and I can't wait to see you grow into that. And I love how you're a team player and you gather people together and you encourage your teammates. And, I really admire you for that. Right. And then, and then they go and sit down or go back to the, wherever the other athletes are. And then I would call Frehiwat. I say, Frehiwat. And so she comes up, and again, I'm talking to her at eye level, and sometimes I'm prophesying. Sometimes I'm just noticing real character traits. I never lie. Sometimes I will talk about a character I want them to grow into, right? Again, positive affirmations. But so for Frehiwat, I would just say, oh, Frehiwat, I notice you are so courageous. And, I think it's so admirable for women to be courageous today. I think you're a leader. I see that you're a leader, a courageous leader, and you will lead many, many, many people in the right direction towards Jesus Christ. And so that's one of my favorite things about you, is your courage and your strength to lead and to have a vision and go after it. So I'm really glad, and I'm really blessed by you being here on my team. And then she would go, and then I would call Darren up, and I would say, Darren, I love your conviction to do the right things. I love how you always you see through things. Like you don't take things at surface value. You're not easily deceived. You see through the lies, and you know exactly and cut right to the truth. And you stick to that. You stick to your convictions. And I really admire that about you. And I think we can all learn from you that quality about you. So, and then we will go through, each and every child comes up. So it's called admire to inspire. So that's something that we can do in families as well, every single day. And dad should lead this, right? Because this is how God created dads. Dads lead this, right? And he would do it if I, in my teams, usually I coach with a team, and so I would call the coaches up as well. And then at the end of the practice, we reverse it. one or two, the players usually like to do it in twos. They don't usually like to do it on their own. So two of them, I'll call two of them up, and they're doing it for everybody. They do the coaches, and they do do an admire to inspire for each of the athletes as well. And I want to say, listen, there is nothing more humbling and more beautiful than standing in front of a child who is giving you an admire to inspire. I like choke back tears many times as I hear their hearts. And it really, when you reverse it, we always do it first as coaches to be the models, because Jesus never asks us to do anything that he hasn't done himself, right? So we always set the pace. But then when we reverse it at the end of practice and these athletes give admire to inspire to us, I can't even explain to you how humbling it is, and how beautiful it is, and how you really get to see their hearts. You get a window into their hearts. And so I would recommend that for families as well. Start the day with admire to inspire. Dad leads it, and then finish with the kid. One of the kids leads it. Highly recommend that. So here we're talking about 1 minute praising. So just some tips on that. Do it immediately. So especially young children, but I think honestly, I think it's any age really, is as soon as something happens, you praise it right there on the spot. There's an extra power behind that. And then be specific. What did they do right or well? Be very as specific as you can. All right. Now, I'm going to qualify this one. So tell them how good you feel about what they did right, and how it helps the organization and the other people who work there. Or in this context, we're talking about family, right? So now, again, remember what I said earlier. It's not about, I like it when you whatever, because that makes it about people pleasing and pleasing you, right? Which we don't want to do. We do not want to raise people pleasers, right? But you could say something like, I thought I made a note about that. Okay. You could say something like, so let's say it's within the family context. You could say, I felt really valued when you, goodness, what would they, let's say a teenager, let's say it's a teenager, and you've just come back from interviews with the teacher at school. You've been to the school with your child, and you could say, I really felt valued when you introduced me to your teacher. You took the initiative as a young person, to introduce me to your teacher, rather than waiting for the grown-ups to take the initiative. I really felt valued when you did that, right? So you're saying how you feel, but you're not doing it as in a people-pleasing way, right? So let's just say, yeah, I had a 14-year-old, and he introduced me. We went to parent-teacher interviews. He introduced me to the teacher. Yeah, I would say, I really felt valued, and I really felt that I really felt proud of you for taking the initiative, as for stepping up for in the presence of adults to do that. And that shows me how confident you are and mature that you're getting, right? Okay. Okay, stop for a moment of silence. Let them feel how good you feel. Right. Yeah, let it sink in, right? As opposed to, get on with your day or get on with cooking dinner or whatever. Is just let it sink in. Let them feel that. Let settle from their ears and their head, settle into their heart, and so to initiate a heart change, right? And then encourage them to do more of the same. So you could position them in situations where they're doing more of the same, or just say, keep up the good work or whatever. All right. Shake hands or touch them in a way that makes it clear that you support their success within here we're talking organization or family, right? Because if you understand the 5 love languages, some of them it's physical touch. So a physical affirmation is important, just as important or more important sometimes than the verbal affirmation. All right. So remember number 2 of the 5 ways of a dad affirming identity, right? One of them was understand the needs of the season. All right. So the seasons these are the ages of a child from 0 to 11 and then 12 to 25, right? And the brackets each define a season in their lives, a season in their development, right? And we just move this over. There we go. All right. So, all right. So now you look at the bottom, who has the impact? Who has the highest credibility, but who are they receiving from the most? Whose role is it to impart the identity needs in each particular season? So here we have from 0 to 5, the mother is the one that imparts or affirms identity from 0 to 5. All right. And this is particularly on an intellectual level. So this is where they're learning to talk. They're learning to point. They're learning to identify what they want and don't want, or like and don't like. They're learning their ABCs and that sort of thing. So this is where the mom comes in. All right. But then from 6 to 12, now this is where the father has the greatest impact, right? And so we're talking basic competencies. All right. So this is where they're starting school, right? Maybe they've already started school a little bit, but they're basic competencies, like reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? So a father is affirming their competencies in these aspects. All right. And then the physical component. This is where physical literacy comes in, right? Physical literacy actually starts long before that, but this is where they're really starting to develop rapidly. So age 9, their lungs have now finished developing at age 9. So now they're starting to develop some strength, speed, agility, coordination. And this is where the dad, so what that looks like is dad takes them out and throws a football or a baseball back and forth, or they go and kick a soccer ball around, or dad takes them swimming or takes them skiing, or maybe they go running together, right? So dad being involved in their physical identity kicks in from 9 to 12. All right. That doesn't mean that you're not going swimming and all this stuff earlier than that, but think of let me explain this from a sport point of view. All right. So a child's body, all of our bodies develop physiologically. Okay. So physically and logically, that's the brain and the body together. All right. So in the womb, the baby develops, I think I've got to remember now. I think the heart actually is first, and then the head, and then the spine, and then I think some other organs, and then little arms, and then hands, and then fingers, and then eyes, and step by step by step, there's this divine perfect order in the development of that baby in the womb. But then after a baby's born, they still are not finished developing physiologically. In fact, their lungs do not finish developing until age 9. So their lungs are still developing up into age 9. So if you're to do, and then their brain finishes developing at around age 22 to 24. And it's the frontal lobe, the decision-making part of the brain that develops last. So think of this, if you're training them in sports, for example, it would be senseless and even harmful to a child to do endurance training before the age of 9. So, or cardio training. cardiovascular training, because their lungs have not yet finished developing. So you're setting them up for failure, potentially some physical harm, because their body is not ready for endurance training. But you're setting them up for failure because they simply cannot do it. So they get discouraged, right? And then quit sports or feel bad about themselves, right? And likewise, asking them to make wise decisions before the age of 22 to 24, again, you're setting them up for disappointment, because they simply do not have that ability, because that part of their brain has not been developed. Now, decision making, like, do you like carrots or peas? I mean, that's not a big decision to make, but I'm talking, life decisions, right? These are the kind, when we say, oh my goodness, they're so stupid, like, what were they thinking? Or what were you thinking? Well, really, they weren't, because they can't. So the key is, let's not set them up for failure when we're asking them to do something that they physiologically cannot do at that time. So that's why we're talking these seasons of development. And there are some seasons, right, where they absorb certain types of training or teaching like a sponge, right? Because they're physiologically, that window of opportunity it's the time to teach that. And that's what we're defining here, right? If they don't learn the basic, pointing, I choose this over that, I choose the carrots over the peas, the speaking, right? Forming their words properly without speech impediments. This, if it's not addressed here by age 5, it's very difficult. Like if they're not forming their words properly, like here, it's a big thing where children don't form their R's correctly. They pronounce them as W's, right? That should be taught before age 6, up to age 5. After that, it's very difficult to get them to change their speech patterns. And in fact, there are speech specialists that have to train them to speak correctly. So because it here is where they absorb it the best. All right, let's keep going down here. I finished up to age 12. Now, the social identity, right? This is primarily, okay, parents and dads, of course, have an influence here and can guide it, but really it's their peers that are helping them develop their social identity. How do I fit in with other people? Who am I in a group of people? Am I the quiet one? Am I the leader? Am I the idea person? Am I the bold one? Am I the sporty one? Am I the artistic one? Am I the compassionate one in the group? This is where they're developing that social identity. Now, again, parents should be very hands-on with that, but we need to understand they're learning about themselves in the context of their peers, right? Okay. All right, and let's move on to 19 to 22. We're gonna, on the next slide, we're gonna talk a little bit more about that. So we'll come back to that. And then finally, training. So this is career training, right? Like what you're going to be doing. What is your life calling? What is your destiny? All right. Okay. Okay, so the third way that a father affirms potential is they're understanding their gifts, their talents, their personalities, what they love to do, what's their passion, right? All right, so let me move this down here. Okay, so 3 parts. All right, they need to discover the gifts that society generally would not affirm. All right, so things like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity and creative solutions, biblical values, right? The world is not affirming biblical values right now. Dads must do this. This is dad's role, right? Also, the world does not teach critical thinking, problem solving, creative solutions. The world is now teaching our children to think like everybody else, right? Follow the line. Don't question things. Do as we say, right? Very conformative thinking. And this was instituted, oh my goodness, I can't remember which year, but the Industrial Revolution, when big business decided they needed factory workers to work assembly lines, to not question leadership, to just do what they're told, right? And so our education system began to teach, don't think critically, don't think for yourself, don't try to solve problems, just do as you're told, right? So this is where dads really need to come in and promote that with our children, all right? All right. Also affirm their unique values your child carries. Okay, so what is it that your child values? Again, we're going to get a little more detail in this in a bit, but maybe they're a child that values peace or oneness and unity, right? Or rightness, understanding right from wrong. This is right. This is the right thing to do. We need to do this. This is the wrong thing. We need to stop doing that. Are they a child about rightness? Are they compassionate, right? For maybe for animals, maybe for their peers. Are they a compassionate child? Are they about equality and social justice, right? So dads, recognize this in your children. What is their unique? How did God wire them specifically? And really promote that and fan that flame. All right. And thirdly, know the social style of your child and affirm accordingly. So are they missional, right? Are they the campaigners saying, come on, guys, let's go do this, right? Or are they, like, again, the caring one? Are they structured or are they unstructured and fly by the seat of their pants, right? So what is the social style of your child? And let's fan that flame as well. All right, now here's some ways. I think it's the next slide. Yeah, here we are. All right, so here's some ways to start recognizing where they're at with these identities, their social identity. All right. So in North America, this is a big thing, the DISC analysis, D-I-S-C, DISC analysis, right? And so what it does is it kind of positions people in quadrants according to their social style or social identity. All right. So on this scale, we've got task people at this end, all the way to the other end are people oriented. So this end, the task people, they're the ones that, you've got a sore foot, doesn't matter. We're moving on. We've got things to accomplish. We got to get this done, right? There's that heavy task oriented people. But the people oriented people are the ones that are going to say, well, stop everything we're doing. Susie's hurt her foot. We've got to look after Susie's foot and then we'll continue on, right? There's just the different approaches. All right, pardon me. Then this part of the scale, the top are the initiators. These are the idea people. These are the ones that have a concept, an idea, or they're a catalyst to get things going, right? And at the other end of the scale, down here, these are the reactionary people, right? So these are the ones that say, oh, okay, this happens. Okay, so now we do this, right? They came up with a response to the initiators. Yes, I'm going to follow you, or no, I'm not, right? That would be an example. All right. So those are the scales for the mapping, right? So let's start just trying to think about where do you fit in, right? So I know me. I'm in this quadrant right here. I'm the inspirer, right? I'm also quite strong over on this side. So I would map myself. So if I were to look at this, so I'm motivating. I'm a visionary. I facilitate things. I promote things. I'm innovative. I'm persuasive, charismatic, and enthusiastic. And most people describe me as passionate. I'm quite squarely here, but I also have some of these characteristics, right? I'm strategic, right? I'm proactive. I don't wait for things to happen. I make them happen. I can be goal oriented. I can be. Um, whatever. Yeah. So I have some of these characteristics here. So I would map myself right about here. Right about here. I'm definitely more in this square, right? But I've got a little bit of these. So I'm mapping myself right about here on the vertical scale. I'm about here. And on this scale, I tend to be a bit of a balance between task and people, but a little more people oriented than task. So I would balance myself here. So have a look down. Let's look at the driver people, the D people. They're forceful, they're debating, they're critiquing. It sounds negative, but these are all good things. They're organized, they're planned, they're strategic, they're proactive, they're goal-oriented, and they're reasoning people. All right. All right, down here, the C people, the calculators, they're detailed, practical, specific, precise, rules oriented, or they stick to very stringent standards. They like things perfect and controlled. Limited risk. They're not risk takers. They're accurate, and deadlines are important, and they're very courteous people. All right. These kind of people generally tend to clash with these kinds of people if there's a lack of maturity, right? There's a way of being in your quadrant with maturity or immaturity. Immaturity means, so an immature I will clash with an immature C, right? So what that means is there's lack of understanding. There's a lack of recognizing that other people are wired different than you. There's a lack of understanding that it takes all 4 types of people on a team to drive a team forward, right? So I'll just use a real specific example on our Grand Council. So our senior international leadership team, which Honest is on, and Honest is our administrator, right? So Honest, would I be correct in saying that you function a little more on the C and maybe a bit of S? Would I be correct in that?
Yeah. You are correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you're kind of in this area here. I'm going to guess, or not guess. I mean, I know you pretty well. I think you're here, but so what Honest and I are doing, because he's kind of the opposite side to me, right, is we're the way our Grand Council has been working is primarily here, because I lead the Grand Council and this is where I am, right? But now what we've done strategically, we've said, Honest, we need you to come in as the administrator and start organizing things more, right? Structuring things more, right? We need that balance. So Honest and I are working together to get that balance. So our team is going a straight direction, the way that God intends us to go, right? And we need other people on the team. This Francis, our director of entrepreneurship, He is the supporter, that he's squarely in this quadrant right here. We need that, right? So he's looking at team harmony. He's sympathetic. He's patient and loyal. He's a team player. He's very serene and relaxed. He's steady. He doesn't have highs and lows. He's a steady, even keeled person. He offers security in a relationship and friendship. So he has, in the fivefold giftings, he's the pastor, right? So this is where he is. And then we already talked about the driver. I would say this is more Cynthia Oliphant, who's not in the call today. This is where Cynthia is. So you see, a good team has all four functioning in maturity, right? Functioning in immaturity means no one's getting along. No, everybody wants the other to think like them. That's an immature D, I, S, or C. So the key with a team, or we're talking family, is recognizing, first of all, and dads need to affirm this, even with the mom and the children, recognize which quadrant they're in and fan that flame so that they become a mature D, a mature I, a mature C, or a mature C, right? And the first step to maturity is recognizing who you are as a dad, recognize who your wife is, who each of your children are, or where they fall into this DISC analysis. All right, and then let them then affirm it. Right. All right, and you can actually go online. I think you can. There's some free ones. Just look up free DISC analysis, and there's like questionnaires, like, would you rather do this or that, or this or that, or this or that, and there's like 150,000 questions later, and I'm joking, I'm exaggerating. It comes out with an analysis of where you fit. All right, and you can do that as a family. All right. Okay, so further to the DISC analysis, here we are. Okay, so if you're trying to figure out who your own kids and who your wife or even our husband is, so let's look at this. Okay, so we have the driver, the inspirer, the supporter, and the calculator. All right, so let's look at the drivers. So drivers initiate change. There's a problem, we're going to solve it, right? And they're motivated by results and challenges. They love results and challenges. All right. Their strengths, they get things done. All right. Weaknesses, they're insensitive and impatient, right? So the immature D will function very much in here. They'll steamroll over other people to get the job done. All right. Their area of growth, or how they can improve, is by listening better. Right. Okay, let's look at the inspirers. All right. So inspirers, they create enthusiasm. So again, this is me. All right. They're motivated by recognition and affirmation, right? Something that very much I need is encouragement and affirmation. All right. Strengths, we get people motivated. People are inspired, right? Weaknesses, we can be impulsive and not detailed enough, right? Honest? Not detailed enough. Right? But that's where we work as a team and other people do the details, right? Like the C people do the details, right? So we don't have to. That's the key. And this is the key we need to remember is I'm not supposed to be more detailed. That's not what God called me to be. I mean, I'm going to use Honest tonight. Actually, it's great that Honest is here and that we're so opposite. Is I was not created to be detailed, right? But Honest was. So when we work together in a mature way, all the bases are covered, and I get to be more of who I was created to be. And Honest loves creating detail. Honest loves filling in the blanks. He loves getting it all documented, right? And he gets to be more who he's created to be. All right. And we can improve by taking a break, pausing. Right. Okay. So let's move on. Let's talk about the supporters. All right. So their strength is they build relationships, right? So the opposite of a D. Remember, the D and the S were opposite on the spectrum, right? So they build relationships. We need the ones that initiate change and drive things forward, but we also need the people that take the time to build the relationships, right? Again, on a team or within a family. They're motivated by relationships and harmony, right? Their day is good, everyone's happy. All right. Their strength is they're a really good team player. Their weakness, they don't initiate things. They sacrifice results for harmony. Okay. But again, when balanced with a mature D, the insensitive, impatient one, right? When they're balanced in maturity, they each take care of both sides. Okay. They can improve by initiating, right? Or I prefer this rather than being better at all things. My preference, and I believe this is a God thing, is working together as the body and allowing the D, the driver, to initiate, but working in mature balance with the driver. Okay. All right, let's move on to the calculator. They pursue excellence and precision. They're motivated by quality and excellence. Their strengths are accuracy and precision. Their weaknesses, they're too thorough and lose sight of time. So they get so immersed in the details. So what that happens is that, like, an immature C will stifle the inspirer, right? Because the inspirer just is envisioning and dreaming and moving forward in that. But then if the C is overbearing, they stifle the I, the inspirer. So you need to find a balance, and the I needs to take the time, right? Pause and give the C, the calculator, the time they need to start organizing everything. All right. And a C would, their area of improvement is making decisions instead of just continuing to organize, but to actually arrive at a result. All right. I hope this is making sense, maybe helping to understand any dysfunction within families. And like, listen, every family is dysfunctional. So let's just get over that one right now. All right. Okay. The fourth way that a dad affirms identity is gender identity, right? Okay. This is kind of a no-brainer. Dads should constantly affirm and confirm the unique gender of his child. And when I'm talking unique, it's boy or girl. That's it. That's what God created us. Man and woman. It's right out of Genesis. All right. For example, girls should be validated for their femininity and boys for their masculinity, right? You look beautiful in that dress, honey. You look absolutely beautiful. And for their boys, let me think here. Yeah, I love the way you conquered that problem. All right. Okay, here we are. Oh, right. The fifth and final way, and this is, I think, maybe our last, we might have one or two slides left. Okay, yes, the Rite of Passage. So, and this is actually in ancient times, because remember, we're getting back to King Solomon times. These are actually celebrated, right? Actual feasts and ceremonies. Here we are, ceremonies. 12 to 14 years of age, a release into adulthood. So the ancient Israelites, and even the Jews today, a bar or a bat mitzvah. And I don't know what the other, I don't know what the other one is. I've never heard of it before. And then again at around 21, a release into adulthood. So some sort of a party, like a birthday, like on their birthday, for example, but a special kind of birthday. And even where dad anoints, you know how like a king or a queen knights a nobleman, like taps the sword on each of their shoulders when they've achieved a high level of character, a high level of like war, like what's it called, like soldierism skills, and they're knighted. It's the same thing. A father actually, there's some sort of a verbal impartation to the child on each of these at each of these ceremonies. All right. Okay. So further to Rite of Passage. Okay. So, the elements of it. Okay. Symbol personifying the values or intended. I'll move this out of the way. Purpose of the person, right? So when you're knighting them is affirming their particular destiny that God has given them, their unique qualities, right? As a creative person, as a sports person, as a leader, as a compassionate person, and so on, right? Calling forth of positive character qualities, a recital of prophetic words, right? Yes, prophesying over them, a confirmation of their gender identity. It doesn't have to be specific. I declare that you are a man. Well, no, it can be, you're a man of integrity, that captures their gender as well. Pronouncement of specific personal blessing of the father and mother, just asking prophetically, God, how do you want to bless my child, your child at this time? And then release them into, like we call it young adult or early adulthood or adulthood. Just release them. I now hereby release you as an adult to rule as God intended you to rule, right? And maybe some sort of symbolic act. I don't know. Let's I don't know what that could look like. It could be giving a family like a ring, a passing down a ring, or have a ring, a piece of jewelry created, like a necklace or a bracelet or a ring that you pass to give the child. I'm just trying to think of anything else. I mean, obviously a bar mitzvah, there's some people still do the circumcision for a man. But I think more realistically, a gift of something, or maybe a trek, maybe a hike to, let's say say in North America, the landing site where, forefathers came over to North America, something like that. Right. All right. So your children become what you are. So be what you want them to be. Ultimately, the best way to teach is by modeling, right? That we can talk, we can, give them books, all these sorts of things. But ultimately, a child wants to be, deep down, like at the teenage years, they're always going to say, I don't want to be anything like my mother. I don't want to be anything like my father. But really deep down, they come by that when they're not seeing godly parenting. Okay. So because they know I don't like it when my mother did this to me all the time, so I'm not going to be anything like that, right? So it's what they're not liking is the ungodly parenting. That's why they're saying, I don't want to be anything like my parents, right? Now, if it's godly parenting, they do want to be like their parents. They really do, if it's godly parenting. So let's model it. All right. So just so you know, so this curriculum is The World Needs a Father. It's not my curriculum. It's brilliant curriculum written by Cassie and Jenny Karstens out of South Africa. They wrote it as missionaries out of sheer necessity, because as they were witnessing to people in Africa, they recognized an orphan heart. They're like, these people cannot possibly understand Father God when they have an orphan spirit. They don't, they've had such ungodly fatherhood or absence of fathers that they can't possibly understand God as a father. So they wrote this curriculum about a real father should be like, to bring healing and understanding so that people could understand Father God better. And so they're on, these are the social media platforms that they're on. And of course they have a website, and I like go through, there's tons of videos and it's all free. And I go to the website and learn more. So the website is theworldneedsafather.com, theworldneedsafather.com. And all the resources are there, and they're free. You could also, again, this is chapter 6. You could also go back to our YouTube channel, and which is on YouTube. It's Hesed International, and the other 5 chapters are recorded there, and you can watch those videos. All right. And that is all. There we go. All right, I'm gonna stop recording.